Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Make sure to like and subscribe to the channel for more interesting stories like these. Now, let's get into today's story video.
After got pregnant wife decided to cheat on me, but I am waiting to do a paternity test and kick her out. Greetings, and welcome. As a first and most important disclaimer, please be patient with the extensive language that follows. There's a TL, doctor at the conclusion of the article. I'm in a terrible situation and am looking for assistance, as are most of the people that post here. This account has been wasted, duh. Please accept any grammatical or spelling problems that may occur due to the fact that English is not my first language. My wife and I have been married for almost 5 years. That was 2 years after we had been together for another 2 years. We were married, owned a house together, and both had successful professions. Everything had worked out perfectly. However, we encountered some difficulties in conceiving the child that we both want to have. We were examined, and it was determined that my wife was suffering from an illness that rendered pregnancy very unlikely. This was undoubtedly a huge setback for us, but we were able to persevere through the valley of tears as a team, with me providing strong support for her. It was the glue that kept us together. We focused our efforts on arranging an adoption, which is not an easy task in our nation. The method is extensive and tough, and we endeavored to push through for over 2 years, progressively losing trust in our abilities. Afterwards, though, something very unexpected took place. We learned that my wife was expecting a child in October of last year, just as we were deciding whether or not to withdraw from the adoption lottery and continue living as dinks, double income, no kids. With great excitement, we started acquiring all of the baby's essentials as well as prepared for the next phases of his development and growth. During that time period, my wife, who was in her second month of pregnancy, expressed an interest in taking a 2-week trip to the United States around Christmas. Unlike him, she had planned to go by herself to the destination. According to her, she is not only traveling to pay a visit to an old friend and his wife, but she is also doing so in order to prove to herself that she is capable of surviving on a vacation that she is doing on her own. The bespoke friend and his wife were familiar faces to me, and I encouraged her in her endeavor, knowing that all would change once the child was born. As a result, this was entirely acceptable to me. I even helped her with the planning and scheduling of the trip, as well as providing financial assistance to her. This was the point at which everything began to go wrong. She began behaving weirdly approximately 2 weeks before the trip in February, and it continued after that. At the very least, that's when I began to take notice. Her phone was always in her hand, and she made it a point to ensure that no one else touched it. When I saw that she was getting emails and texts on a consistent basis, which had not been the case before, at least not to this level, and questioned her about it, she turned off all phone alerts, sounds, and vibration for the time being. She reacted defensively and sought to defuse this situation as much as possible. It was something I consented to. When the time came for her to go, everything seemed to have returned to normal. It was my pleasure to pick her up from home and transport her to the airport. With a kiss on each other's cheeks, we bid each other farewell/goodbyes. I already miss yous. We came to an agreement that she would keep in touch with me and look for herself as well as the baby belly if she ever separated from me. Throughout her trip, we spoke often through Skype, text, and other ways. Throughout the year, she expressed her longing for me as well as her excitement at the prospect of meeting up with me again. Despite the fact that it took many days, I eventually met her at the airport 2 weeks after I had last seen her. We hugged and kissed each other goodbye, and I was relieved to see her once again. I, on the other hand, saw that something did not seem to be completely correct. What she was doing was strange, and I couldn't figure out what was wrong with her at all. After that, she became more distant from me over the course of many weeks. There were several instances when we got into conflicts over little issues such as this cup isn't properly placed on the cabinet and other such minor disagreements. We, on the other hand, continued with the building of the baby room, which included painting the walls and adding many other finishing touches. I saw that she never seemed to take her eyes off her phone, which I thought was weird. As my misgivings about her grew, I made an effort to get a glance of the information stored on her phone, the sudden trip, the phone issue, her changing behavior. On a few occasions, I was able to read her text messages, which was unusual for me. This is the exact moment that my heart physically burst open in my chest. As part of my inquiry, I learned that she has been communicating with another guy through messaging, sexting, and email for the previous 4 months, which I found to be suspicious. A daily email exchange takes place between them, in which they express their feelings of love and devotion to one another and even make plans to meet again and spend the rest of their lives together in the future. On top of that, I noticed that they had sex on hand. I was in a total and utter state of despair. She, on the other hand, pretended that nothing was wrong and became a little more distant from the world around her. In a short period of time, her kisses began to be sloppier, her sex were less frequent, she avoided touching me, and so on. As soon as I woke up, my brain began to work on autopilot, and I had no control over it. When it comes to being the finest husband on the planet, I go above and beyond. This includes taking extra care of the home, nursing her when she has a nasty cold, going on date evenings, which seem entirely normal and wonderful, and so on. I make an effort to keep my thoughts hidden behind closed doors. I'm wondering what she's up to, whether or not she'll desert me, what will happen to our kid, and whether or not it's my child. The fact that they were separated by a physical barrier gave me confidence that everything would work out in the end. That she will be able to recover her faculties. Just take a look at her actions right now, how she is ruining not only her life, maybe, but also mine, certainly, and potentially the lives of our unborn kid. 1 month has passed, and it does not seem like she will be stopping anytime soon. This is the situation in which we find ourselves right now. What I'm having trouble with today is that I feel she believes I'm completely clueless of what is going on. I'm sorry I snooped around, but my wife was the one person in whom I had complete faith before everything happened. We had both been in previous relationships in which we had both been cheated on, so we made a promise to one another that we would never do that to one another again. I still care for her, but I'm not sure she feels the same way about me. However, I'm afraid to inform her since I'm scared about her reaction and the ramifications of doing so, but I also don't know what I should say. If I inform her, she could decide to leave me. She may, on the other hand, tell me what I did wrong that caused her to cheat on me in the first place. She may escape with the child, but she could also choose to stay and continue messaging and meeting with this guy, all while using me as her financial backer. What I'm curious about is what you would do in this situation. Would you be willing to tell her? What would you say to her if you were in her shoes? So, should I ignore this problem in the hopes that it would go away after the child is born? Is it terrible that I still have feelings for her? Thank you for taking the time to read this. For me, writing this was also a kind of venting since I didn't have anybody else to share my feelings with. Update 1, please accept my apologies for the wall of text, I was too ignorant to know how to insert blank lines. Update 2, I'm responding to some of the comments and private messages I've received, but first, I'd like to express my gratitude to everyone for their kind, but also candid, comments. I'm not sure whether the kid is mine, are we sure we're not? I know she got pregnant in October, and the first messages I received from her were in December, but I have no idea where or when they met for the first time. I'll almost certainly talk with an attorney merely to be aware of my options. Abortion at this stage of a pregnancy is prohibited in my country. Update 3, I'm now working on obtaining further evidence, it hurts so much to see all of the junk on her phone, and consulting with an attorney to see what I can and should do next. After that, I'm going to confront her. I plan to be there for the birth of the kid, but I will request a paternity test after the baby is born, just to be sure. Oh, and in case you were wondering, I now live in Germany. It is believed that the individual she avoided is a former military member who is now a teacher in the United States. I have his full name, address, phone number, and email address on file for reference. His place of employment is recognizable to me. I am aware of the identity of his son. I entertain the idea of contacting him and confronting him. But I think I'll postpone this for a while.